Greetings, creeps! Welcome back to Hallowscream, radio for haunters, Halloween junkies, and the members of the UK Halloween prop-making Facebook group. This week we review some horror classics in the Wretched review, spread the love in props for props, and get a little spaced out in terrifying tutorials. Next up, we're trying to inspire you with some out-of-this-world videos in haunting inspirations. But first, we've got one more week until the Halloween weekend. It's crunch time, kiddies. Time to pull those fingers out and get our projects done. Off the top of my head, I've got at least 3 things to get done, but the bad weather has been a bit of a challenge. Though I've got to say, I'm ignoring the forecast for the next week, especially next weekend, Haunt Fiends, and I suggest you do the same. There's honestly no use worrying about the weather, as the wind only needs to change speed or direction for it to become completely different than what is forecast. So get out there, finish your projects, and have an amazing Halloween. Now, let's get started with some haunting inspirations.
Haunting inspirations.
Nanu, creeps! This week on Haunting Inspirations, we've got some out-of-this-world videos for you to check out as we take a look at Alien and Area 51 themed home haunts. In our first video, we return to Oxfordshire and Steve Scotton to see his 2016 video of his Halloween display, where he has covered his small front garden space with a crashed UFO build that includes an animatronic alien peeking from within. It's a fun display that would look awesome for your own home haunts. Now we've got one that's a little different. I try to only go with home haunt videos so that you can see what's possible at home, but there just isn't that many videos of this theme, so I'm starting with 2015's Alien vs Predator walkthrough at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. The video itself is from Theme Park HD and gives us a good 6-minute walk through the attraction. We get some awesome look at the animatronics and very impressive set pieces. At one point, toward the end of the walkthrough, there is a really great and gory scene that involves an alien spitting acid. Like I said, it's not a home haunt, and it probably has 100 grand's worth of prop building gone into it, but I see no reason the home haunter couldn't watch this and try to replicate some of it, especially some of that awesome set and scenery work. Next up, we have another walkthrough imitating the Alien franchise. This time though, it's a home haunt, and you'll see a couple of props imitating some of the Universal Studios walkthrough. This walkthrough home haunt though, is in a basement. The first 7 to 8 minutes of the video look around a back garden maze built by the uploader, Ben Lawrence's in-laws, while the second half of the video focuses on his Alien walkthrough that's been built in the basement. So skip ahead to about 7.5 minutes if you only want to see the alien stuff. There's some effective prop builds here, including a few facehuggers that were made out of cheap Halloween spiders, and they actually came out surprisingly well. I'd love to do a walkthrough like this one day. Because we cheated this week and had a professional home haunt, I've chucked in a couple of extra small haunts that I thought would be really good as well. So the next one is super simple, so I've included it on today's list. With a very simple setup that's a prop talking alien with light up eyes stood in front of the house, and the house has some strobe lighting that imitates UFO lights. The whole setup is the perfect example of how to effectively use lighting and sound design in your haunt. It's only 55 seconds long from YouTuber Mark Friedman, but I just really enjoyed it and I had to put it on the list. Lastly, we have a just over 6-minute video from Calabama Kev, who has created a scene with a UFO crash inside a haunted graveyard. We get a few minutes looking around the cemetery and alien props before entering the garage, where a small walkthrough has been created that includes some really fun props, including a Stargate. So hopefully we've inspired those of you that want to look beyond our planet for their scares. There's definitely a couple of props I want to build one day from these videos. Next up is Haunt Tips. Join us next week for the last haunting inspirations of this season. Haunt Tips. Come in, get comfy. Or if you like to listen while you're working, get busy. We're only a week away. It seems insane to say that, but as always, Samhain is upon us quicker than expected. That final week is always the same. Blind panic as we realise that we might not get everything done in time. I'm certainly having that feeling, but it can also get us down, make us feel like that's it, we've had enough, and we won't be doing it next year. Honestly, it's totally normal for a home haunter this time of year. It's a frustration that we all feel as the crazed little home haunters we are. Setting up a schedule or a plan is really important this time of year, and is something I can't recommend enough. Granted, sticking to it can be as easy as feeding piranhas with your bare hands. A couple of us from the UK Halloween prop making group used to listen to a show called Hauntcast. Sadly, it doesn't exist anymore, but it was a podcast on a much greater scale than this one. It was 3 to 4 hours long with a load of different segments, hosts, and interviews. It inspired what I'm trying to do with Hallowscream. One of those segments was Revenant's Theatre of the Mind, a segment usually full of fantastic musings and thoughts from Revenant, who often had great advice to help us either get on with our projects or to help keep us in the right mindset to do them. So this week I'm going to take something from Hauntcast episode 43's Theatre of the Mind, the 3-track plan. First, set out a realistic vision of what you want to achieve within the time and budget available, and that becomes your primary goal, and we call that Track B. A stripped down version of your primary goal that you can do as the bare minimum should be considered Track C. And then you have Track A, the super version of Track B. Usually this will only happen when, by some kind of miracle, you have a load of extra time and money on your hands. It's not the one you're aiming for, but it's the one that would be awesome if it happens. It's easy to end up feeling despondent and fed up because all too often the real monster that is real life is always trying to push us into Track C. Whatever money we have seems to run out quicker than expected, and time, well, I think as home haunters we all know just how quick time can go. The bent up old minecart you're riding along the 3-track plan then leads to the rule of the 3. Put simply, the rule of the 3 comes down to whether you want it fast, you want it cheap, or do you want it good. You can't have all 3, so pick 2 of them and roll with it. The good quality result will require time and resources. The cheaper option, that will probably require more time and labour to get the quality result you want. And if time and labour are a problem for you, then you may need to spend some extra money on bringing in some shop brought props or special parts, materials, etc. The rule of 3 is usually a pretty good rule of thumb, but those rules can be bent. Occasionally we get very lucky and can use all 3, but there's another way we can bend the rule. We're haunters. We already have something that can help us achieve what we want. We're a creepy, creative bunch. We scavenge, we recycle, we find ways to make it work, and if we can, we usually find a way to make it work well. There's a certain mindset involved in it all. The ability to see something completely random and instantly see what it could be if you use it in your haunt. For example, it's quite a regular thing for haunters now, but at some point, someone looked at brown parcel paper and figured out that with a bit of crafting and good lighting, it can be used to make the interior walls of a cave, or look at how many of us can take wooden pallets and turn them into whole structures. I'll say it again, we're haunters. We can make it work, and our crazed creative minds can make it work well. Fast, cheap, and good. Occasionally we can have it all. But these occasions are relatively uncommon. Just keep your mind's eye open for that other person's scrap that might be the perfect item you need to build part of your haunt. Quite often we spend a lot of money creating an effect that we could achieve for a lot less if we just find the right item to get those gears turning in our head. I present the parcel paper example again as evidence of that. We can achieve amazing things, and more importantly, amazing memories with just a little extra thought. It's all in the detail. The normal trick-or-treater or visitor to your haunt isn't going to be paying a huge amount of attention to the details of your scenes. So let's say you have a dark forest or woodland scene, and someone is there jumping out in a monster costume. This could be in a small room or in a hallway or walkway, for example. Some simple black painted or covered walls with something like camouflage netting or even a camouflage paint job on the walls won't be enough to fool the visitor into feeling like they're in a forest with just that alone. But combine that with some fake plants, maybe some cardboard tree trunks lining the wall a bit, and a large fake plant to hide your monster, it could be enough to give someone the impression they've entered a forest area, especially with the right lighting. We can also achieve something like this with misdirection. Maybe you have a large animated prop, an actor that's in there shouting and screaming, or you have it lit up in a specific spot of the area to draw the visitor's attention. This way, the average visitor isn't going to be paying all that much attention to the other parts of the space. Some clever lighting and a little set dressing can be enough to sell the scene. Some clever lighting and a little set dressing can be enough to sell the scene. If the visitor can see something moves or makes a noise, etc., then their attention will be pulled to whatever that is for fear of it coming for them. Make it the thing they see the most, and the visitor's own mind will fill in the blanks of the scene. Remember these things when it comes to building your sets and decorating your haunt, and you may well achieve something even better than you ever thought you possibly could. I hope this has been an insightful one for you, my putrid patrons. Be sure to return next week, where we'll be learning about the history of Halloween here on Haunt Tips.
Wretched Review.
Hello, Haunters. Come into the Scream Room and take a seat as we look at some classic horror movies. I was initially planning to review the original Halloween, the 2018 sequel, and recently released Halloween Kills, but unfortunately I'm yet to see it. So instead, we're having a Carpenter feature with the 1978 Halloween and 1980's The Fog. But first, let's talk about Halloween.
The one, the only, the classic Halloween.
Halloween night. A small American town. 15 years ago.
Michael?
Halloween.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. I think he'll come back.
Exploring uncharted territory.
Totally charted.
Just talk.
Sure.
Sure.
The only reason she babysits is to have
Halloween.
Okay.
Come on out.
spawning many sequels, covering more than one timeline, and bringing Jamie Lee Curtis back from the dead more times than you can count on fingers, there's no denying the impact that the Halloween series has had on the world of horror. In the first entry, director and co-writer John Carpenter, along with Deborah Hill, introduced us to the iconic silent masked killer Michael Myers. As opening scenes go, the first few minutes of Halloween are a perfect introduction to the silent stalking killer, who always waits for the ideal moment to strike before taking his prey. We see Michael's older sister Judith having some fun with her boyfriend on the couch, before they decide to retire upstairs. We view them through the eyes of an observer, who we soon find out to be Michael, breathing heavily as he peers through the window. The observer sneaks inside, retrieves a large knife from a kitchen drawer, and creeps upstairs after Judith's boyfriend leaves. En route, the unseen figure pops on a small clown mask, meaning the viewer's vision is obscured through the two small eye holes. Judith now sits naked, brushing her hair as she sits at her dressing table. She recognizes her killer, screaming, "Michael!" before the knife springs into relentless action. The killer then flees as a car pulls up outside the house containing Judith's parents. Our killer is unmasked, revealed to be nothing more than a child holding a knife that's almost as big as himself. The brutality of the killer, teamed with the reveal that a child is behind this murder, sets us up perfectly for the creeping unease that we're about to experience over the next 91 minutes. The bulk of our story is told 15 years later, when Michael escapes from a sanitarium. Dr. Loomis, who is treating Michael, is convinced that he will return to his hometown of Haddonfield to finish what he started on Halloween night 15 years ago. And so he heads to the town with the hopes of stopping Michael. But the main focus of Halloween, and one of the most classic examples of the final girl, is Laurie Strode. Laurie is a high school student, an excellent babysitter, and portrayed as the most innocent of her friendship group. While her friends are interested in hooking up with their boyfriends, avoiding work, drinking alcohol and doing drugs, Laurie is making plans to knit and carve pumpkins while babysitting on Halloween night. While John Carpenter certainly didn't invent the slasher movie, there's no denying that Halloween reshaped the horror genre. Films that came before, such as Psycho in 1960, Black Christmas in 1974, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the same year, definitely marked the beginning of the slasher's subgenre. But Halloween brought that slasher killer right onto our own streets. Those slashers that preceded Halloween focused on one location, normally remote or separate from everyday life and society, allowing those killers to pick off their victims with ease. But in Halloween, Michael rocks into Haddonfield, Illinois, and begins to stalk Laurie in the daytime. He follows her around town, lurking in the distance as she sits in her classroom, driving past her and her friends as they walk home from school, follows Annie's car as she gives Laurie a ride, and even stands outside Laurie's window when she arrives home. Rather than relying on the common horror tropes of isolation or people getting lost, Halloween showed audiences that evil can be lurking anywhere. Laurie catches Michael stalking her on many occasions, but because Michael chooses to strike on Halloween, it allows him to blend into the background, meaning her friends just tell her not to worry. It's Halloween, everyone's wearing a mask. In Halloween, the isolation comes for Laurie when she knows there is something wrong, but she's unable to find anyone to share that concern. The slow stalking builds until Halloween night, when darkness falls across Haddonfield and Laurie is separated from her friends. Those friends, Annie, Linda and her boyfriend Bob, all lose their lives to Michael inside the Wallace house, where Annie is meant to be babysitting, but across the road, reliable Laurie is caring for Lindsay Wallace with her own charge, Tommy Doyle. Her friends are free to break all those horror movie rules, and they suffer the consequences for it. Unlike more modern slashers though, Halloween lacks the gore and blood that audiences are accustomed to today. While both Judith and Bob are stabbed to death, there's no blood or focus on those injuries. Instead, the focus is on the blankness with which Michael observes his victims. There's no emotion in his vacant eyes, and the mask he chooses to wear is void of any expression. He seemingly gets no joy from his killings, but rather it's something that he feels he has to do. And in Halloween itself, we're never given any hint of motive for Michael's killings, other than that he's maybe enjoying terrorizing Haddonfield. The building tension that we experience in the first 2 acts of Halloween switches to a breathless one when Laurie heads over to the Wallace house and finds the bodies of her friends. Much like his sister Judith before her, Michael has set his sights on Laurie and finally makes his move on her. Laurie has to face off against Michael with no knowledge of why he's trying to kill her, and no support or protection from her friends. This final chase produces some of the most iconic scenes in the whole movie, and horror in general, including Laurie stabbing Michael with both a knitting needle and a coat hanger, Michael fighting his way into the bedroom closet, and Michael sitting up rigidly in the background of the shots after Laurie thinks she's finally beaten him. All in all, Halloween is an iconic slasher. Its use of daylight and the apparent safety of suburbia, with a danger always lurking in the background, makes it stand out from the typical slasher conventions we are used to. Michael's lack of motive or backstory might be off-putting to those who like to get to know their killers a little more, but really, we learn all we need to about Michael in those opening first few minutes. In truth, Halloween is about Laurie. We're not supposed to connect with Michael because he is the bad guy. Instead, we're supposed to build a relationship with our wonderful, ass-kicking and brave final girl. Everyone deserves one good scare on Halloween, and John Carpenter's 1978 slasher is perfect for Halloween night or any other night of the year. And that's why it gets a solid 5 out of 5 from me. I can watch this film over and over again and be entertained every time. You see now how it's still so different from the slashers of the time, and it really just elevates the film to another level. Now we move on to Carpenter's follow-up film, The Fog.
John Carpenter's The Fog.
This is KB Antonio Bay. Stevie Wayne here, and let me be the first to wish Antonio Bay a happy birthday. We're 100 years old today, and keep a watch out for that fog bank heading in from the east.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unknown came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
Oh, Jesus.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unnatural came out of the fog. Now it has returned. 100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something evil came out of the fog. Now it has returned.
Who's there?
The fog.
Antonio Bay has a curse on it. We're all cursed.
There's no water getting here, but something awful cold, Pete.
I think I'll go to Vancouver now.
Where's the fog now?
Well, it should be right outside my door now.
Oh, there's something different about this fog. Dan, stay away from the door! Someone listen to me!
Get inside and lock your doors. Close your windows. There's something in the fog. Stay away from the fog. From the creator of Halloween, the ultimate experience in terror and suspense. John Carpenter's The Fog, starring Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Houseman, Janet Leigh as Kathy Williams, and Hal Holbrook as Father Malone. The Fog. What you can't see won't hurt you. It will kill you. Between midnight and 1, it will find you.
Antonio Bay is about to celebrate the 100th anniversary of its founding. The founders of Antonio Bay, however, hid a secret that could come back to destroy it all those years ago. And when Father Malone uncovers this secret, he realizes that Antonio Bay's history is a fraud. As a hitchhiker named Elizabeth Soley, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, and local man Nick Castle, played by Tom Atkins, begin to realize that something is wrong when the crew of a fishing boat are found dead. Local DJ Stevie Wayne, played by Adrienne Barbeau, is also uncovering part of the mystery, while Kathy Williams, played by Janet Leigh, tries to organize the whole centennial celebration. But the fog is coming, and there is something within it. Directed by Carpenter as his big screen follow-up to the widely successful Halloween, The Fog was met with mixed reviews, but has since become a cult classic, and for good reason. The movie was tapped for a remake in 2015, which was universally panned by critics and fans alike, and I'm one of those fans. I was actually quite excited when The Fog was announced as a remake. I grew up loving The Fog. I saw it when I was a young child, and when I heard the announcement, I thought the remake with the at the time modern effects could be something amazing, but what we got was a load of crap. The idea of the fog is great. If you've ever been caught in a big fog bank, especially an ocean one, there easily could be something right in front of you, and you'd never know. To me, the pirate tie is also interesting, but the story ends up feeling like it could have been pushed a bit further. There are some great tense moments in the fog, and a great cast to experience it with. The boy trapped in the house, for example, and Adrienne Barbeau desperately clinging to the rooftop of that lighthouse comes to mind. The reason is Carpenter does a great job with the direction of the film. He shot the fog with such a style that what scares the movie does have can probably be contributed to that. But there aren't enough of those tense moments in the movie. Ghost stories often aren't a jump a minute, but the fog could do with more of them. The ending of the fog is also built up to nothing, really. Yes, there's the tense Adrienne Barbeau moment, but the whole church segment just feels a bit of a waste. The characters all drive through the fog for about 15 minutes, but then they just hide in a room and present a giant golden cross to the ghosts, and it's suddenly all over. That last-minute jump scare isn't very shocking or surprising either, to be honest. It really doesn't help that feeling that the story just needs a little more. The cast and the visuals are fantastic. The style of the fog rolling in, and the realization that that was done before CGI effects, is just a token of success for Carpenter's film. Add to the movie the number of scream queens, Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Curtis's own mother, Janet Leigh, of Psycho fame, plus solid actors like Tom Atkins, John Houseman, and Hal Holbrook, and you have a really good combination of actors. The Fog, despite its flaws, is a watchable movie. It just has a cool style to it that almost makes you forget the story. Take The Fog for what it is, though, a creepy ghost story that isn't scary enough. There is a bit of a fun precursor to John Carpenter's future in Barbeau's warning at the end of the film. She tells some sailors to watch for the fog, which echoes The Thing from Another World. The Thing from Another World, of course, would be John Carpenter's next film, remade as The Thing by him in 1982. I'd love to be reviewing The Thing for you right now. It's one of my all-time favourites, but I just don't have the time. The Fog, however, gets a good 4 out of 5 from me. It's probably nostalgia a little bit. I do love this movie. I saw it when I was about 6 years old, maybe a tiny bit older, but it stuck with me. It never particularly terrified me much as a kid. I was a kid that grew up with horror movies, but I just remember loving it, and that sticks with me today. So I might be rating it a little higher than it deserves, I don't know, but like I say, the actors are great, the visuals are fantastic, but what's missing is just a little bit of story. Either way, I think we've got 2 solid entries from John Carpenter there. Who knows, maybe next year we'll have another Carpenter-a-thon. Anywho, that's it for this week, kiddies. Join us next week when we'll be watching 2 Halloween anthology films on the Wretched review. Props for props. Welcome back to Props for Props, where we choose a prop built by a member of the UK Halloween prop making group and give it the props it deserves. I always try to choose props that stand out to me, but in the interest of fairness, I'd also try to not pick the same person twice. But I saw this build and instantly fell in love with it, and I'm breaking that rule. Today we're giving props again to Gary Michael Cross, but this time it's for his Carnival entrance sign. I wish I was able to show you it visually, because just talking about it won't do it any justice. The sign has amazing artwork that is coloured perfectly. You have a creepy looking clown peering over the top of the sign, with the first half of Carnival written in that classic golden circus carnival style, and the evil part of Carnival is a slimy green font reminiscent of things like the Tales from the Crypt or the Goosebumps logos. Genuinely, I love it. It's perfect for the theme that Gary is doing, and he's done an awesome job with it. I know he wasn't quite finished when he posted the last picture of this, with plans to add a little blood splatter detail. I hope you managed to get a video of your Carnival come Halloween, Gary, because with all the awesome builds you've been posting in the group, it's gonna look epic. It must be said, with Gary's previous winner, the clown shoes, reminding me of something like Are You Afraid of the Dark, and this week the sign giving me vibes of Goosebumps and Tales from the Crypt, I'm a sucker for nostalgia. Now we shared a bit of love for the week, be sure to join us next week for more Props for Props.
Terrifying tutorials.
Houston, we have a problem. This week's terrifying tutorials are all alien in nature. Learning how to create an alien container to how to build a whole UFO. We have some great videos lined up for you. First up, we have an alien containment unit. This 21-minute video from Samhain Prop Works shows you how to build what is a pretty large size prop with a cardboard concrete form, plastic shoebox and EVA foam. A shoebox-sized hole is cut into the concrete form, and the box is then inserted into the hole. The tube is then covered in EVA foam and detailing is done using a soldering iron. Once painted up and detailed, a green light is added to the inside of the concrete form, which created a really cool effect when viewed through the shoebox that now acts as a window. This is a really fun build, a little time consuming when it comes to detailing, especially riveting the EVA foam with a soldering iron. But this is yet another prop I'd like to try and build a version of one day. It would look great as part of a display on an alien walkthrough, or maybe it's beside a crashed alien ship. If you have actors in your haunt, you could even have one or two of these being carried around. Maybe you have 2 or 3 on display and one of them is broken, as if an alien monster has escaped from within it. There's a lot of cool things that can be done with this one. So go and check Samhain Productions out. They have some other awesome builds too. Next we have a video from Creative Schmative that shows us how to both turn a shop-bought skeleton into an alien and build a crashed UFO. The first 5 minutes are spent building the aliens, and they use a shop-bought skeleton and basically plaster it to turn the skeleton form into that of a stereotypical alien. It's then painted green and given some detailing. Then we get to the UFO. The frame is completely PVC piping, taped and glued together in the right places. The frame is then covered in silver tarpaulin and fitted with some details that include a dome and LED strip lighting to give a cool lighting effect. The final product is a really nice UFO crash site with 2 aliens stood around it. As there's a lot of plastering involved, it could be a fun one to do with the kids, and they can help paint too. Either way, this is a fun build and looks good at the end of it all. The next video, I'm going to warn, is probably quite an advanced one. It's another UFO, this time a flying one, but it's built with a metal frame and has a fair bit of electronics involved. The 5-minute tutorial from Labcoat Pool starts with the frame being built from steel wire conduit that is cut to size and welded together. Then, large sheets of cardboard are used for the body of the craft, which is then covered in aluminium foil. LED strip lights, a smoke machine, party laser, and 15 computer fans are added to this before it is hoisted up on a rope that hangs between Labcoat Paul's house and a large tree in his back garden. The end result looks amazing, and though it is a pretty advanced build, I don't see any reason you couldn't simplify it. Change the frame to PVC, for example, and if you don't want to, you don't have to use all of those electronics. Now we have something that you'll have seen a few times in this episode's haunting inspirations, the stasis tube from the Alien movies. Odin of the Or Me channel shows us how to build this using a cardboard concrete form, a sheet of polycarbonate and several other parts for the top and bottom of the build. So not only do you get a cool prop for your UFO themed home haunt, you have a nice movie prop that you can display at once Halloween is over too. This tutorial was another one that I'm going to call on a quite advanced level, simply because there is a lot involved with building it. But you do end up with an amazing end product though, so if this one is one you decide to try, be sure to share it with us in the UK Halloween prop making group, because I'm pretty sure we want to see it. For the last one in this week's list, we have these funky little specimen jars from Adam Savage's Tested. Host Kate shows us how to fill the jars with creepy contents, water and colouring, which really gives the end result a grisly look. In the video she uses bugs and doll parts, but I've included it on the list as you could swap the contents out for whatever you want, so these jars could be great for a sci-fi scene, mad scientist, or even as part of a witch themed haunt. As a little bonus on the end here, I wanted to add this fun little kid-friendly project from Disney on their Disney Family YouTube channel. This 2-minute video shows you how to take a pumpkin and turn it into one of the aliens from Toy Story. Sorry, couldn't resist. It's a fun one for the kids, and all you need is paint and a little cardboard. And with that, we've reached the end of this week's list. Claw your way back next week for this season's final, terrifying tutorials. And there we have it, my putrid patrons. The end of another episode of Hallowscream is upon us. It's squeaky bum time. Just a week to go. But before the big day comes, you'll have one final episode to torture yourself with. As always, Hallowscream is looking to improve, so please leave any comments, suggestions, etc. you may have in the comments, or get in touch on the UK Halloween prop making group if you are a member. I'm not going to ask for help again this season, but I will for next. I want to make the show bigger next year, so if you think you'd be interested in running a segment next year, then do get in touch. Plenty of time to think about it. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, then please rate the show, hit the like button, subscribe, or whatever else it is you can do on the platform of your choice. I'm off to bed now, my fiendish friends. I need to try and get some energy for the busy week ahead. So, until next time, boils and ghouls, stay scary.